I remember justice. It had a pleasant taste. Justice was what we were about when Beric led us, or so we told ourselves. We were kingsmen, knights and heroes. But some nights are dark and full of terror, my lady. War makes monsters of us all. Are you saying you are monsters? I am saying we are human. You are not the only one with wounds, Lady Brienne. Some of my brothers were good men when this began. Some were less good, shall we say. Though there are those who say, it does not matter how a man begins, but only how he ends. Hey guys, Kevin here, and today I want to look at the nature of House Stark. A few years ago, I used to joke that perhaps the Starks were the villains of the series, and all the horror of the books and the show are their justification for destroying the world, just ending it all, and putting everyone out of their misery. At this point in the show, this is obviously ridiculous. The Stark children are obviously the good guys. The lone wolves will reform the pack and fight back the night that is so dark and so full of terrors. The books, however, are much, much darker than the show. The grayness of most of Martin's characters extends to the Stark family, and the suffering inflicted upon their family through war and betrayal, loss and death, have made all the Stark characters darker. The youngest of the Stark children, Rickon Stark, is now dead in the show, after he was taken to the last hearth by Osha, and they were betrayed by the Umbers to the Boltons. Rickon's book counterpart was taken to Skagos in a plot that now involves Lord Manderly, Davos Seaworth, and Stannis Baratheon. Rickon was always the wild one, likely a consequence of becoming a warrior at such a young age, when the wolf mind and personality was likely so much stronger than his own. But on Skagos, Rickon is likely being raised by unicorn-riding cannibals, which isn't likely to make him a better person. His older brother, Bran Stark, also suffers from his youth, as he begins the series as an entitled, self-obsessed highborn child ignorant of the world around him, and over the course of the series, morphed into an entitled, self-obsessed crippled child with godlike powers. Bloodraven tells Bran that he draws his strength and power from darkness, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it creates balance. After all, the Lord of Light demands people burn little girls alive. But given that the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers, that a theory like Jojen Pace is likely true, and that Hole Hold the Door incident, and all the other disturbing revelations about magic in the series, Bran drawing his power from darkness definitely isn't a good thing either, especially since Bran is still fairly immature. As the beginning of my Arya's List video goes into, a major theme in Arya Stark's storyline is death. From Syrio Forel telling Arya that there is only one god and his name is death, to Yoren's story of reciting Willem's name every night like a prayer, to Jaqen and the Faceless Men who worship death as their god and view death as a gift. Arya's story grows darker and darker as she continues her path of worshipping death and giving the gift of death to those on our list. In the Mercy chapter from the Winds of Winter, Arya's attempts to remember her new name mirror that of Theon's Reek. A concerning parallel, given that the Faceless Men are trying to turn her into no one, and have been active in Westeros since we met them. In the books, Euron Greyjoy hires a Faceless Man to kill his brother Balon. It wouldn't be out of line for him to hire a Faceless Man to kill another rival, such as the King in the North. And Arya losing her identity to the extent that she kills or attempts to kill the person she cares about the most is fairly Martin-esque. Her older sister, Sansa Stark, has also always been on a dark path, falling from dreams full of songs and stories, from admiration and trust of Cersei Lannister, to becoming what it takes to survive in King's Landing, and later to thrive in it. Sansa has been mentored by Littlefinger, and has advanced enough in Machiavellian statesmanship by her Winds of Winter chapter that she has impressed the Lord Protector of the Vale. Lord Baelish's plans to make Sansa the Lady of the Eyrie and Winterfell, Wardeness of the North and East, and eventually the Queen of the Iron Throne, comes with the price of making her his equal in cunning and cruelty. And though this is likely to backfire on Baelish himself, it will also likely cause some, if not significant, problems for other characters we care about. The Ghost of High Heart made 2 prophecies about Sansa. The first being that her hairnet would contain the poison that would kill Joffrey in the next book. The second being that she would slay a savage giant in a castle built of snow. Some believe that this prophecy was fulfilled when Sansa slapped Sweet Robin after he destroyed Sansa's snow castle of Winterfell. But given the rest of the Wood Witch's prophecies involve actual deaths, this is unlikely. Others believe that Littlefinger is the savage giant Sansa will slay, given that the sigil of House Baelish is the Titan of Braavos, though Littlefinger changed his personal sigil to the Mockingbird. It is important to keep in mind, however, that the character most associated with giants in the series is Sansa's husband. Tyrion Lannister is often compared to a giant, and he savagely murdered his paramour with his bare hands and father while he was on the privy. The plans of Baelish and Sansa require marriage, which means that Tyrion is an obstacle that must be overcome, a point Sansa makes in her Released Winds of Winter chapter. The mother of the Stark children, Catelyn Stark, is an obvious example of a Stark turning villain. Beric Dondarrion gives his life to the woman killed at the Red Wedding, and Lady Catelyn returns to the series as a revenge-filled wraith, hell-bent on destroying House Frey. Thoros of Myr's comment that war makes monsters of us all is meant more for Lady Stoneheart than anyone else, and the new leader of the Brotherhood without banners has already likely killed someone we didn't want dead. Ned Stark was someone who didn't live long enough to become a villain. He died a hero, beheaded by the Frostborn King Joffrey. The eldest Stark child, Robb Stark, met a similar fate. He was beheaded by his own bannerman, House Frey, whom betrayed him for King Joffrey. The last member of House Stark also died a hero. In the show, Jon Snow was stabbed to death for saving the wildlings from certain death at the hands of the Night King and the White Walkers. In the books, Jon is stabbed to death after announcing his plans to gather an army to take back Winterfell from the Boltons and rescue Jane Poole, whom he thinks is Arya. Jon is stabbed to death, and is or will be resurrected later. In the books, it is strongly hinted that Jon wargs his direwolf upon his death, which leads to speculation that Jon will come back different when he is resurrected. The new Jon Snow should have wolf's blood, the impulsive personality trait that Ned Stark claims put Jon's uncle Brandon and his mother Lyanna in the grave. Jon Snow will come back with a greater desire to live his life, which will lead to his decision to leave the Night's Watch. A decision that Jon Snow we know would not make. The old Jon Snow would never break his vows, even on a technicality, unless it was ultimately to fulfill his duty to the Night's Watch, which leaving wouldn't. This wolf blood isn't likely to make Jon evil though. But Robb's will names Jon King in the North, and that puts him into conflict with all of the other Starks, whom all naturally come before him in the line of succession. Jojen tells us the wolves will come again, but that may cause more problems than it solves. Anyway, just something to think about. It's always important to see things from different perspectives. So like, comment, subscribe, share, check out my other videos. I believe my next A Song of Ice and Fire video will be my one about Valyrian Steel. So I'll be back soon with more videos.